welcome to the first ever video that I'm ever going to do about Tottenham Hotspur. Maybe this is the first, maybe this is the last, who the hell knows? But the reason for me making this video was that Spurs fans have gone into absolute overdrive in the last few hours since the game yesterday against Bournemouth, which unfortunately was one of our best performances of the season and went downhill very, very quickly when it was a sort of back and forth. Tell had an amazing goal, then Bournemouth scored, then we scored, then Bournemouth scored again, and then in the last minute, lo and behold, we cannot hold on to a draw for love nor money, and so we ended up conceding the game. And the reason for me starting this channel is that I have been a Spurs fan all of my life. I've been going to games. My first game I went to was back in the late 90s, and it's been a roller coaster. But one thing's for sure is the debate about the manager is never gonna go away. And in my humble opinion, the problem is bigger than the squad. And for years now, for a decade, for longer than a decade, the conversation around Tottenham has been, is it the board? Was it Daniel Levy? Was it the managers? Was it the players? Was it the fans? And I think it's safe to say, based on the last 24, 48 months, is that this problem that Spurs are experiencing is so much bigger than a manager. Because that has been proven time and time again. No matter whether it's Nuno, no matter whether it's Conte, no matter whether it's Ange, no matter whether it's Frank, the squad is always left short. And I'm constantly having debates with people in WhatsApp groups, in chat forums online, and through my lens, in my perspective, it's my opinion that what Ange proved last year was that it is totally possible to overachieve on expectations. As much as people put down the Europa League trophy and winning that competition, people are always saying, well, it was a very easy competition, anyone could have done it. And then, lo and behold, we finished 17th in the league. So the question then becomes, well, if it's possible to win one competition, why is it not possible to sustain success across all different competitions? And we know for a fact that ever since Poch left this club, that we have not brought in enough players for squad rotation. And the narrative around Tottenham is that their squad isn't good enough. Now, I'm not saying that we have a squad that is good enough to compete with top four, because we're simply not there at the moment. However, we are not a lower half table team. So why is it happening that we are underachieving across all competitions that we're currently playing in, right? Because we went out very early from the cup against Newcastle. Champions League, we're doing okay, but then the people who are speculative about the success of Spurs, let's say, they say, well, actually, the teams that we've played in the Champions League are really easy teams to beat, and so there's no real excuse why we should be even drawing to Bodo when we beat them twice last year. So from my perspective, the season before Ange came in, I think we finished 8th. I'm just going to double check this, but I'm pretty sure we finished 8th. And that was the season. I'm just going to double check. Yeah, that was the season 22-23. That was the season before Harry Kane left. So we'd finished 4th the season before, which meant that we were in Champions League. Then with both of those competitions, the Premier League and the Champions League, we dropped to 8th. Now, without any Champions League football, we managed to get back up to 5th. And then we go again and we drop down to 17th. So I think from my perspective, what is really, really clear is that we do not have a terrible squad. Our squad is perfectly capable of being a top half table team. The biggest challenge that we have is that we don't have the depth to have the squad rotation that's necessary. Now, we can clearly see players like Kudus, players like Porro being run into the absolute ground. And people are saying, well, Frank should be changing it. He should be putting on some of the youth. But it can't be underestimated the quality of the teams in the Premier League, right? Because a lot of teams have been strengthening over the past few years, right? That's really clear to see, like Aston Villa, teams like, Bournemouth, they're not doing so good this year, but even Brentford, Newcastle, Fulham this year are in the top half of the table as we speak. So there are a lot of like mid-table teams that historically probably would have been fluctuating around the mid-table that are now getting themselves up in the top half of the table consistently, meaning that they're getting European football, and those teams are reinvesting back into their squad. And we keep firing our managers. You cannot create sustainable long-term success if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, right? What was the quote? I can't even remember what the quote was, but what we know for sure is when you keep firing the manager, you start from square one every single time. Every single time you're starting from square one, and you're rebuilding from the foundations up. And so you have a manager who's been in the job for 6-7 months. In the summer was loaned 2 players. Okay, we bought a couple of players in, right? Xavi, decent signing. Paulinho came in on loan. Mouani came in on loan. So was he really backed? Like, obviously no one was really complaining at the beginning of the season. But in the back of our minds, we all knew that he was under-resourced. Right? We all knew that he was under-resourced. So it's incredibly frustrating to see fans now being like, well, we should have, hired more people. We need to get rid of Frank out. Because, as I said before, the problem is so much bigger than our manager. It does not matter what you do. Okay, now, one of the reasons why a lot of people appreciate my opinions is because I come from this perspective as a transformational coach. And I've coached thousands of people to transform their businesses, to transform their lives. And one thing is completely for sure, no matter who you are, what life you live, how much you earn, where you live, who you are, okay? You need to commit to the process and do the uncomfortable thing. Now, for Spurs, the uncomfortable thing has always been to keep the manager, because the easiest solution we're so used to now is getting rid of the manager. So you can never evolve, you can never build on the challenges that you're facing, you can never fix the problems if you keep running away from the problems. And all firing the manager does is run away from the real problem, which is that you need to build a squad over several seasons, several windows, right? In reality, when this season started, I was speaking to my dad and he was saying, you need to give Frank at least 3 to 4 windows. I honestly think it's more than 3 to 4 windows. And people are already shouting for the manager's head, and we haven't even had 2 full windows. So it's absolute insanity. right? Everyone has gone into overdrive. Romero is busy tweeting, calling out the board or whoever he's calling out. And look, Romero did this time last year. Someone in a WhatsApp chat earlier today said, oh, you never would have seen Romero do that under Levy. Yes, he did. He did exactly the same thing last year, and then we brought in Kinski and we brought in Dragusin. Did that fix the problem? Not really. It meant that we had a centre-back, so we didn't have to play Archie Gray and Ben Davis at centre-back. But did it really plug the problem? No, because then Dragusin got injured as well. And this is the problem, right? When you, as an individual, get burnout, and I'm talking about, forget the club for a minute, forget the manager, forget the board. If you are a player, I think a lot of fans resent you because you earn multi-millions. So it becomes as a money mindset mentor, I know this to be true, because what ends up happening is you have a situation where you create this division of them and us. They're the people who are on the pitch, and so they should be performing the best. They're the people that are earning multi-millions, so they should be performing the best. They're the players who are at the top of their game, and so they should not be calling out the manager because it's not their place. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're a player and you are being run into the ground, and your boss, essentially, right, your boss is not hiring the support that you need to perform your job the best, then you're not going to be happy and you're going to want to leave. And all the speculation around Johnson leaving and how did the club let him go, I refuse to believe it. I absolutely refuse to believe that Johnson did not make that request himself to leave. Because if you were him, if you had been slandered to the point where you had to cut off all of your social medias from the abuse and the suicide threats that you're getting, why the hell would you want to stay at that club? Why would you want to stay? It's crazy. It's crazy to even think that people are saying that, it was the fault of the club, because the club knew that this was going to happen. The club weren't playing him. Frank wasn't playing him. So it's completely naive. It's naive to not bring in another player. And then what goes and happens is our other right winger, Kudus, our starter, he goes and gets injured. So the situation is a revolving door internally of players who are reaching burnout, both physically, emotionally, mentally. And this is draining. It's draining the passion out of the players. It's turning the fans against the institution if they weren't already, because that's been going on for years. So the only solution for me personally that I think we can make a success of this is by backing the manager. Do I enjoy Frank Ball? No. Do I enjoy watching Tottenham Hotspur right now? No, I don't. But do I think the situation would be different if we had Kane and Son in this exact team? 100% it would. 100% it would. So unfortunately for Frank, he has put himself in a very tricky situation because he is stuck between a rock and a hard place. He knows it's not working. The guy's not blind. He knows it's not working. To even suggest to say that Frank thinks this is working in some kind of alternate universe is absolute madness. It's barbaric. Because we know that we are better than where we are right now. At the time of making this video, I think we've got 10 points from our last 11 games, which is a possible 33 points. That's not even a third of the points. You can't just say that it is the way that we are playing when we are playing every 3 days. And one of those days you're flying off to Italy. The next day you're flying to Newcastle. The next day you're flying down to Bournemouth or driving down to Bournemouth. And then 3 days later you're back home only to find out that in 4 days' time you're flying to the Arctic Circle. It's just insane. If any one of us was in that position and you were back to back every day, training game, flying, training game, you're going to have burnout. And that is why you need squad rotation. That is why you need squad depth. And we are so light. And it is driving me insane to the point of even making this video that I got so annoyed at everyone saying this is Frank's fault and Frank needs to leave. Look, Frank, I absolutely empathise. To the board. You need to pick a guy and you need to back the guy. Whoever the guy is. That is what you promised at the beginning of the season. So if you are starting a new legacy, if you are starting a new era, if you're starting a new evolution of the club, you need to take a risk. You need to take a risk. The bigger risk you take, the bigger the potential for reward and the bigger the potential for failure. But there's no bigger failure than doing nothing. If you do nothing, you are going to fail. You cannot stand still in a space that is constantly evolving. It just doesn't work. And to the players, look, I love the players. As much as people say, yeah, they're not performing at peak, that is because they are suffering from burnout. And if you fail to believe that, then I'm sorry, but you lack absolutely any empathy. Am I saying that we have the best squad in the league? No, I am not. We have a team of squad players, bar Van de Ven, and I'm not even convinced that Romero is in that bracket. Bar Van de Ven, we have a team of squad players. You cannot sell every single player in this squad. You can't do it. You need to upgrade on Tell. You need to upgrade on Odegaard. You need to upgrade on Xavi. Okay, Maddison is injured. Maybe you can take or leave that one. But you need to upgrade on Bentancur. You need to get rid of Bissouma, okay? There are some players in the squad that you can afford to let go of. But you need to upgrade on Porro. You need to give these players competition. You need to upgrade on Spence because we know that Odogi is injury prone. And now Bergvaul's out again. So he's now injury prone. And you're putting a kid who is 19 at the core developmental stages of his career. And potentially you're setting him back for life. Like, the kid's not Rooney. Right? And so you need to be protecting these players for their future. And people are calling for Williams to Barnett to start playing. Well, you can't play the guy because you're going to put the kid in a position which could ultimately break him for the future. You need to protect these young players. And out of sheer desperation, our fans have become so quick to turn toxic, to want to play the youngsters, to have people thrown out the door without a plan in place, which is exactly the thing that the board should be doing behind the scenes right now. Look, maybe they are trying. Maybe they're trying to get in players. But all we know to be true is it's day 8 of the window. We've got a cup game this weekend, which absolutely no one cares about. It's going to be freezing cold. I know people who aren't going. I am a season ticket holder. I've already got my ticket, so I can't sell it back. But there are people who cannot sell their tickets. And quite frankly, the stadium is going to be empty. We know it is. We know it's going to be empty, which is a whole other conversation. And maybe I'll make more of these videos. Maybe I'll talk a little more about that. But for now, I think we need to sit tight. We need to be patient. And yeah, this is going to be a topic maybe that I'm going to explore more in future. So thanks for watching. And I'll see you maybe in the next one.